Resident Evil 5 is mostly known for its goofy gameplay and horrible tank-like mechanics, but for some, it's a cherished memory, a genuine blast from the past that you would happily pick up a controller to play again when you're really craving the PS3 piss filter. For me though, I keep coming back to this game for its speedrun potential, not in the main game because I really don't have the time for that level of torture, but in the DLC, Lost in Nightmares. The Lost in Nightmares DLC lets you play as Chris Redfield, who has partnered up with Jill Valentine for one simple mission: find and arrest the founder of Umbrella, Oswald E. Spencer. On a typical playthrough, the DLC can take around an hour or so depending on the difficulty you choose as you navigate through the Spencer estate, solving puzzles and shooting baddies. No, not that one. But I'm not a typical gamer. I don't enjoy spending hours trying to beat a game, especially if I've already beaten it before. No. I get the most enjoyment out of a game when I can find sneaky little ways to beat it as quickly as humanly possible. I like to speedrun. So, naturally, after my first playthrough of the Lost in Nightmares DLC, I didn't turn off my PC and go on a walk to touch grass. No, I clicked the start button again. I chose the easiest difficulty, and I endeavored to beat the game in the quickest time I could. My first successful run of this game wasn't exactly a hit, it was maybe 15 or 16 minutes, but I knew for sure that it could be much faster, and I knew there had to be tricks I wasn't yet aware of. With that in mind, I joined the Resident Evil 5 Speedrun Community Discord server and started taking notes. I did my research. I looked into every little trick there was, and eventually I got more and more successful runs. My first recorded run came in at 10 minutes 11 seconds and utilised good pathing and the ability to break some of the doors in the mansion. Then, I beat that time with a 9 minute 48 second run by improving my overall speed in performing these tricks. Eventually, I learned newer, slightly more frustrating tricks which I will dive into very shortly, and I eventually crushed not only my previous personal best, but also everybody else's, with a world record run at 8 minutes and 54 seconds. That run was very quickly beaten 4 days later, but hey, for a brief period of time, I was a world record holder. I was first place in something. I could have taken interviews, performed speeches. I was the best speedrunner humankind had ever known. But I was humble. I chose not to do all of that. Instead, I'm on a very niche and specific mission, one that only the bravest and most honorable speedrunner can understand. I want to bring the world record time even lower. So, with that, this video is a guide for anyone who is interested in speedrunning the Lost in Nightmares DLC, and will contain everything you need to know to take the world record spot. Let's get started, shall we? Okay, so, to start the game, we're going to skip this cutscene and find ourselves in the foyer of a home that's maybe only a little bit bigger than mine. If you've played the game already, then you already know that every door in this area of the mansion is locked, and you need to head behind the staircase to pull the lever which will unlock the gates at the top of the staircase. Before we do that though, I'm going to make you hate the very idea of this speedrun by telling you exactly why nobody runs it anymore. You see, there's a glitch that we want to perform later on in the piano room where we throw a hand grenade through a tiny hole in the wall. I'll talk more about why we do that later, but for now, we need a hand grenade. The only way to get a hand grenade early into the game is to break these pots that are neatly lined up against the wall and... Oh no, none of the vases had any grenades in them. Okay, well, I guess we'll just restart the run, give it another go, and... oh. No grenades again. Do you see where I'm going with this? The hand grenade has an extremely low chance of dropping when you break one of these vases. I think it was calculated to be around a 0.2% chance. Which means you now have two options. You can either spend your Saturday evening pressing restart hundreds of times in the hopes that you find a hand grenade, or you can choose not to reset for a hand grenade and go on without it, whilst accepting your fate of never having a world record speedrun. So, let's say you've made your choice and you either have a hand grenade or you don't. Your next step is to head over to the lever, activate it, and whilst Chris is swinging his freakishly large arms up in the air to grab the lever, you want to very quickly open up your inventory, extend it to see Jill's items, and then close it again before the cutscene begins. You'll want to do this because if the RNG gods are on your side for this run, Jill will also be picking up an MP5 in the dining room later on, and you want to take that off of her. There are ways to guarantee that Jill will always pick up an MP5 by resetting your game even more, but I'll touch up on that at the end of the video since it's not a requirement for the run, though it will absolutely shave off a second or two if used. Great! You've flipped the lever and the doors at the top of the staircase are unlocked. Let's make our way up there and perform our next trick. For this one, you'll want to kick open the door on the left and very slightly walk through it and a little bit to the left so that it stays open. Then aim your gun at the wooden door across the hall and start blasting until it breaks. If Jill hasn't caught up to you already, give her a moment and walk through together before heading to the broken walkway and launching her into the air like a gold medal Olympic gymnast. Jill is now going to make her way into the dining room so that she can unlock the door for you, whilst you head over to the door you just broke to get the very first key item, password 3. By the way, you'll know whether or not Jill is going to pick up an MP5 depending on if there is a green herb on this dresser. If there's no green herb, there's no MP5. Anyways, head through here, break another door and grab password 3, then head back to the foyer of the mansion and head into the dining room. As you're heading through the door, you're going to want to open up your inventory and request the MP5 from Jill if she has it. If not, don't worry, it's not necessary for the run. Anyways, once you're in the dining room, go left and pick up the second key item, password 1. I have no idea why they're out of order, it's infuriating, I know. Once you've grabbed that, you can turn around and head to the wooden door at the end of the dining room. Break this one too, and head through the corridor beyond. Then, head straight up the stairs and break the wooden door up there. Remember that grenade we were talking about earlier? Well, if you didn't grab one, then you'll need to ask Jill to play what is probably the most fire piano piece of the 19th century, as you would during a normal playthrough. But if you persevered and reset the run until you got a hand grenade, this is what it all leads up to. Essentially, in one swift motion, you want to run into the room, aim your gun up at this little section of wall, take out your hand grenade and throw it. Throw it and watch it seemingly phase through the wall like some sort of quantum tunneling phenomenon. Throwing the grenade through here is going to cause it to explode right next to the big red button that you would normally need to shoot to lower the false wall, meaning you get to skip Jill's entire piano piece and grab the emblem around 10 to 15 seconds quicker. The area of the wall that has no collision is very small, so it's important that you throw the grenade correctly. Now that you've got the emblem, you can retrace your steps back into the foyer of the mansion and head straight over to the emblem door to unlock it with, well, the emblem. Once inside, walk through the corridor and pretend that the jump scare got you, and investigate this door, which is also very conveniently locked. Fortunately, we can ask Jill to pick the lock, and while she does that, we're going to head to the next room and prepare for yet another grenade skip. As you enter this room, turn immediately left and head to this crate in the corner where you'll find 4 grenades, 2 hand grenades and 2 fire grenades?
Incendiary.
Incendiary. We don't need the red ones, so grab both of the green ones and continue through the room to perform the grenade clip. This clip is going to let your grenade explode right in front of this locked gate, and the explosion will break the padlock, allowing you to access the next room. Just tuck yourself into this little corner, take out your grenade, and line your crosshair up right around here and throw. If you muck that up, it's a hard reset because we need that second hand grenade for later on. Whilst that's in the process of detonating, do a quick 180 while still aiming for maximum efficiency, and grab the next key item, the heat paper. This is technically password 2, but we need to take it elsewhere to heat it up because for some reason these candles just won't cut it. Before we do that though, head into the next room that you just unlocked with the hand grenade and pull the lever. It may seem like nothing's happening, but if you remember your initial playthrough of this section, then you'll remember that pulling the lever prevents the ceiling from crushing Jill into a pancake. Pulling the lever early here means that when you do eventually make your way into that room, you won't have to go back on yourself to deactivate it again. Anyways, with that being done, we're going to go all the way back to the foyer and into the dining room so that we can finally heat up that paper and reveal the final password. Now that we've got all of our passwords, we can return to the door that Jill picked the lock for and pop these passwords into the computer inside that room. This is going to lower yet another false wall, and we can run into that room, skip all of the cutscenes of the ceiling coming down, and grab the crank in the safe with no hassle. There's another trick coming up, which involves us asking Jill to give us something. Just retrace your steps back to the foyer of the mansion, and as you're entering through either one of the doors, ask for her ammo or her first aid spray, or anything that isn't her pistol, because she really doesn't want to part ways with that. Because of this request, she'll hesitate when coming through the emblem door, and that gives us a little bit more time to open the gate for her underneath the staircase. Just make sure that when you exit through the emblem door, you immediately turn hard right to go this way past the pillars, otherwise she won't hesitate and you'll lose a second or two worst case scenario. As for turning the actual crank itself, there is a little bit of a rhythm to it to make it open faster. I never figured out the rhythm, but I did figure out an alternative method. Spamming A and D as fast as you can won't make it go faster, which is really annoying. But if you hold down the D key and then mash A as quick as you can, it usually makes the gate go all the way up in about 5 to 6 seconds, and that allows Jill to pass through without stalling. Usually. All caught up? Feeling good? Good. It's time to leave the mansion behind and head through the door into the... Nothing too crazy about this section, just jump down this hole and land with your knees bent, then follow the path down the stairs and around through the jails. This is where we'll meet the first enemy of the entire run, but you don't even have to fight him. Sometimes he doesn't even spawn. If he does though, just run past him while he's stuck in this attack animation and head round the top of the hallway. Make your way down the stairs and quickly throw that hand grenade that you picked up earlier on at this wall to break it open. Before it explodes, make a mad dash towards it so that you can pass through as quickly as possible, and get ready to do our first tactical restart. What is a tactical restart? Well, if you take a look at the minimap, you're all the way over here whilst Jill is all the way over there. We just got a checkpoint, and for the next key item, we need her to be pretty close by. So, wait for the checkpoint to clear, open up your escape menu and hit restart. This way, Jill teleports to you right away and you can crack on with the run. Whilst your game is paused and restarting, your speedrun timer will automatically pause thanks to the use of a load time remover, which you might have already noticed during cutscenes, when collecting certain key items, and when the game loaded a new area. Anyways, make your way up the spiraling staircase and up to yet another crank scenario. Most of the time, you'll be able to head up the stairs just fine, but every now and then an enemy will spawn walking either towards you or away from you. If it's walking towards you, then you can just go past it with ease, but if it's walking away from you, then you'll have to get close enough to trigger its grab attack. Make sure you step away from it in time to avoid actually getting grabbed, then you can walk past it. Head over to the crank and use our little trick from earlier where you hold D and spam A, so that Jill can open up the chest behind the bars and grab the jail key. When doing this, make sure you don't let go of the crank until Jill has actually opened the chest, because if you do, then this will cancel her action and she won't grab the key at all. This will kill your run. You can let go of the crank as soon as the chest opens, just not any earlier. We've got another tactical restart coming up because Jill is actually going to get stuck behind those bars whilst we jump down to where we came from and use the jail key on this door over here. Drop down the hole in the floor to trigger the next checkpoint and restart the game to warp Jill back to your position. Then, head straight over this small bridge and launch Jill into the air for the second and last time in this run so that she can pick up the next key item, the silver crest. Once you regain control of Chris, do a full 180 and head forward, then right. There is a small chance that one of those enemies will be walking towards you here, but I've never had them try to attack me. Sometimes Jill will shoot those acidic blobby things whilst you're right next to it, and that will actually stun you. So, if there's an enemy walking towards you here, just clench your cheeks and pray. Once you've passed the enemy, you can open this chest and get the golden crest and head up the stairs at the end of the walkway. We're going to put these crests in their slots at the top of the stairs, but just before we hit the use button, we're going to tell Jill to get over here because the next door requires her to be with you to progress.
Hurry! Hurry!
In this section, we instantly load into an unskippable cutscene type of thing, whilst Chris and Jill try to figure out where they are. And as soon as we regain control of Chris, we're going to run right around the corner and up towards the red platform. There's an enemy, which you can see on the minimap right here, who kind of locks onto you when you walk through here. And if you hug the left wall, it's going to get all weird and stuck on the map geometry. So you want to make sure you hug the right wall when heading to the platform so that the enemy walks its normal path. Jump up to the platform, then climb up this bit and head straight over to the chest for the colored crank. Now, the colored crank. It has a chance of being either red or blue, and we really want it to be blue because it makes the split so much faster since both Jill and the enemy don't have to travel as far. If it's blue, head this way, drop down and instruct Jill to start turning the crank and then lure the enemy into the trap while she raises the platform. Depending on your luck, the enemy might be a little too quick and try and attack you, which we don't want, but it might also get stuck on something and struggle to even get to you, which we also don't want. What we want is for the enemy to be lured towards you at a speed that allows you to cross to the other side of the raised platform without getting attacked, but also at a speed that allows it to be under the platform a little bit before we ask Jill to drop it. Dropping the platform whilst the enemy is not quite fully under it will skip the cutscene of it being crushed, which saves about a second. If the cutscene plays, it's not the end of the world because the timer still pauses, but it is a little bit slower because of Chris's animation. If you got the red crank instead of the blue crank, it's a little bit slower, but the principle is the same. Tell Jill to raise the platform, lure the enemy under and drop it on its head. Grab your shard for the second to last split and be on your merry way to give Wesker a good ass kicking.
7 minutes. 7 minutes is all I can spare to play with you.
After you climb the ladder out of the maze, you arrive at a small staircase which you can take up to the hallway that leads to Wesker. There are 2 handguns on the floor here, one for you and one for Jill. We're going to grab the first handgun as quick as we can and run away because we don't want Jill to get a handgun for this part. After skipping the cutscene, you're greeted with a stern looking Wesker who's slowly walking towards you. Just like any final boss battle in a speedrun, we want to get to work right away here. We're going to aim our pistol and shoot Wesker not once, but twice and no more than that. Shooting Wesker twice here will trigger his rush attack, which we can use to our advantage to stun lock him and deal damage. So, shoot Wesker twice, run forward to get plenty of space, and await his rush. On amateur difficulty, the action button is always F, so we can spam F to dodge his attack and immediately run behind him to give him a nice whack. Before you whack him though, you want to order Jill to come towards you so that after you've whacked him, he leads straight into his jumping kick. If Jill is anywhere else, there is a chance he'll focus her instead of you, and we do not want that if we want to make this work. To put that all together in quick succession, you want to shoot Wesker twice and run forward, dodge his attack, run behind him, and quickly call Jill, then press your action button right after to give him a whack. Once he does his jumping kick, shoot him in the balls to stun him, and this time tell Jill to go so that she goes behind him before giving him another whack. Run to his back and quickly turn around to shoot him during another jumping kick, then rinse and repeat with the go command thereafter. I would highly recommend practicing this fight because a lot can go wrong. After all, the AI that these characters have is piss poor and they often just do random shit regardless of what you want. This fight has caused me plenty of trouble and cost me plenty of runs, and if I'd have just spent a fraction of the time that I spent restarting for a grenade practicing this fight, I would have had way more finished runs, way more success. I might even have a better record than I do right now. Point being, the fight can be challenging if you don't know what you're doing. So just go in there, and if your run dies, then just hit the restart button and practice. Anyways, let's say the fight went perfectly. You beat Wesker in an amazing time and Jill was cheering you on in the corner. You know, before she rugby tackled Wesker. Now what? Well, that's it. That's the run. Your live split timer will automatically stop on the final split and you now have your finished time. I understand that was probably a lot to take in such a small amount of time, but just like with any speed game, the more you play, the better you get. If you put everything I've said together, this is what your run should look like. the world record anymore. There is so much to improve on, and we can definitely bring the time even lower. I just hope after this, we get to see more potential world record holders. Anyways, I thought I'd include this last little bit to touch up on what I didn't fully go into previously. So here are some things you might want to keep in mind if you do plan on speedrunning this game. You can manipulate whether or not you get the MP5 before you even reset for the grenade. You just need to load into the game and head up the staircase in front of you so that you can turn around and take a look at the dresser. Is there a green herb on the dresser? No? Then fully quit to the Lost in Nightmares menu and try again. You can do this over and over until you see the green herb, at which point, instead of quitting to the menu, you can finally hit the restart button and begin your resets. I mean runs, begin your runs. If you use a controller, that's fine, but as far as I know, it does mean that Jill will turn the cranks a little bit slower for whatever reason. I have no idea why. With this, it's typically quicker to use keyboard and mouse. This also applies for whenever you need to see your crosshair, because you can only see the crosshair using keyboard and mouse since it's hidden when playing on controller. It's completely random how many bullets a wooden door can take before it breaks, but the most is 4 bullets and the least is 1. Though breaking a door in one shot is a lot more rare than breaking it in 2. During the maze section, the enemies can sometimes get caught in random bits of map geometry and will require you to move around so that they unhook themselves and keep moving. Just be sure not to get too close to them as it might trigger an attack, which will lose you some precious time. If there is any dialogue running when you're trying to interact with one of the 3 passwords, you'll have to wait for the dialogue to end and for the subtitles to disappear before you can actually interact with it. This means if you beat Jill to the dining room door before she unlocks it, you're probably going to lose a few seconds waiting for the dialogue to end. Since the waiting around is just dead time, I like to shoot the wooden door at the end of the hall before I get the password so that we technically save the time that we would have lost in waiting. All in all, that's about it. I really hope this guide was helpful, and if not, then I hope it was at least somewhat entertaining. I'm going to leave a link to all the useful stuff related to the run in the description of this video, including a link to the Resident Evil 5 Speedrun Community Discord server. See you in the next one.
Game over. I died. Oh no. Restart.
Restart?
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 Would you like to restart?